My name is Maina Kiai. I'm the director at Inform Action, which is a small NGO based in Nairobi, but working at the grassroots across the country. This is a turning point in many ways in this country. This is going to be the fifth election since multipartyism began in this country in 1992. And it's the first election we're having after the episode of violence that left 1,300 people dead, 600,000 people displaced from their homes, and a sense of foreboding and a sense that Kenya wasn't as stable as many people thought internationally. It's important, therefore, in the sense that we are now trying to see if we can move away from that. So this election is crucial in terms of this being the first election under the new constitution, but also to signify if we are really away from what led us to violence and conflict in the last election. So it is a crucial one. If we get this wrong, then we are going to be very, very far behind. We're going to be very far behind in what it is we want to achieve for this country. If we get it right, then I can say very frankly that the future of Kenya is very, very bright. I'm certainly concerned about this election in a number of ways. First of all, the electoral body, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, has not shown itself to be quite strong and firm and determined. We wanted and we need an electoral body that is strong. The last crisis in this country in 2008 was triggered by an electoral body that was weak, that was manipulated, and did not seem to be able to have full control of the process. It's so crucial for the electoral body to get this right because it is the single most important trigger for all the other tensions and animosities that are there. If people don't feel that the election has been conducted fairly and openly and transparently, then there's a sense that what else do we have? If we can't get the election right, how do we ever express ourselves in a peaceful, non-violent manner? There is, however, for the first time in many, many years, a safety valve. And that safety valve is the fact that we have a new constitution and we have a new judiciary that people are beginning to have confidence in slowly by slowly. So that safety valve is where I think attention will be, I think people will focus their attention on the Supreme Court and how it makes its decisions. If it makes its decisions in a transparent, sensible manner, then I think the possibility of violence is greatly reduced and people will then feel that point of tension has been released. The period after the voting is going to be an important one in some ways. One is how the candidates conduct themselves. Secondly, if the court rules that there's need for another election, how that is handled. If the fault in handling the first election is by the election body, how then that is rectified and how we move around it. But for now, I think what I get traveling across the country is people very desirous of a peaceful process to handle this whole election. So I think the possibility and the inclinations towards violence have been reduced somewhat than they were in 2008. Politicians have been cutting away and mowing away at the gains we thought we had in the Constitution. They've been watering down the Constitution. So post-election, again, we will be looking forward to seeing members of parliament and elected officials who hopefully can restore the gains we had in the Constitution. You must never forget the impact of violence in terms of fear and how much even if you only directly affect, say, 10,000 people, then you can rest assured another 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 will see that as a sign and fear. What you're seeing now as the election goes is that communities are congregating where they have numbers and where they feel safe in the security of numbers of their own communities, which changes the dynamics dramatically. Because if you registered in Nairobi and you come from Kakamega, which in Western Kenya, and so you have to then move to Kakamega, it means you won't vote. Because the way we vote in this country is that we vote where you registered. You can't move your vote from place to place. So that's going to have an impact. I'm not quite sure how much it is. But again, in a place like, if you look at a place like Samburu, where there was recent violence between the Samburu and the Turkana in Samburu, the consequence has been that the Turkana are no longer a factor in Samburu. The fight has meant, and the back and forthing has meant that Turkana have moved back into Turkana land. And now their numbers, which used to be substantial within the context of Samburu district, are much fewer. So they won't have the impact they thought they would have. But you're seeing them then is moving to, apart from Turkana, they're moving as well now across, over Samburu and into Isiolo and Laikipia. So they're spreading it out more. You don't have to have that many voters. I mean, I think if you look at most seats in this country, most parliamentary seats, if you get 15 between 15,000 and 26,000 in many parts of the country, you've won the seat. Some areas, of course, are very densely populated and you need many, many more. But generally speaking, if you can displace anything between 5 and 10,000 people, you've made your point and you've established yourself as a warlord, if you wish, within that region, which also has its own dynamics and ramifications. In certain parts of this country, there has been a mitigating factor, and that mitigating factor is really the International Criminal Court. And when I have traveled in parts of the Rift Valley, which was the epicenter of the conflicts in 2008, you find youths are much more reluctant now to get involved because they understand that there could be consequences. So the fact of the ICC coming into Kenya and getting engaged in Kenya has had a good impact in terms of youth then being a bit more reluctant to get involved. The police have not reformed. They're still very much under the control of the presidency. What's a big worry in certain ways, because we have to figure out whether the police will be used again as a tool for one side against the other. Second thing that is worrying is then the role of the public service. And in this country especially, the executive and civil service is significant in terms of its reach and in terms of its numbers. The civil service is the center of everything that happens in Kenya, much more than corporations or private enterprise or civil society. The largest sector in this country is public service. And when the civil service and public service, with a big reach, with control, with a lot of resources at its disposal, with control of the police as well, when they start taking sides, as I think they have done, I think they're doing right now on behalf of one side as against the other, that becomes a worrying thing. It's a very dangerous trend when public servants who are supposed to be impartial in public and in their public work start taking sides. The third thing that makes me worry is the sense of, for lack of a better word, the sense of entitlement that certain people within government have. And they feel they have to be in government, that they cannot afford to lose, that they must be at the center of everything, they must be in control. And when there are people like that who control the levers of power and the levers of force, and they don't want to let go, and they feel that their interests are not served by a peaceful democratic process, then I think you have to be worried a little bit.